And then came the realization that in some of the chronic conditions we were studying, for example, in inflammatory bowel disease, in Crohn's disease, we're able to show that some of the normally dominant microbes tend to really diminish drastically in patients. And so we speculated that some of those could actually provide functionalities, for example, interacting with the immune system and providing anti-inflammatory properties. And so we did demonstrate that for one bug that is called Fecalibacterium prausnitzii. And that was the beginning of a nice story, because then you want to demonstrate whether if you provide a strain of the species in question, then you do confer the activity. So we demonstrate that in animals. And colleagues of mine created a company that is mass culturing these species, strains of that species, and they are providing it as a probiotic. So this is what I call probiotic new generation, because it's actually gut bacteria. For the regulator, it's more complex. You need to demonstrate that there is no toxicity, that the strain is fine, that there is no secondary effect when you administer it. It's a drug development, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. And it takes a long time, as we mentioned. And this is ongoing at the moment. And we've seen a few examples that went from drug development to food supplements. The initial one I mentioned, lactic acid bacteria, you were suggesting, they are the classical ones that have been used in history for a very long time in traditional processes. Yogurt preparation, for example, there is no pathogenic species known within these bacteria. Fine, we use them, we put them in food. And until 2006, it was left to national agencies to decide whether the provider could say that it does something interesting to your guts or to your immune system. 2006 is when Europe member states decided that it was the job of Europe to take care of that. And so it went to EFSA, the European Food Safety Agency. And from then on, my vision, a bit pessimistic probably, is that there was no establishment of the proper way to allow to validate allegations. And that means that the consumer is left to his own experiment, basically, to test whether it works or not for him. And so it's a bit of a pity that we do not have that in an efficient way of supplying relevant science-based information to the consumer. Now consumer means for food. There is another segment, which is parapharmacy, over-the-counter drugs. And there is a long list or long lines, shopping lines almost, of supplements that you can buy in pharmacies. And again, when I started working on those, companies were doing the job in that they were, for each and every new product, testing in animals and testing in humans. And in the right population of humans, that was the normal target for the drug and the normal functionality to improve or correct. And this was fine. Today, there is really long lists of products that you can find, but not all of them have seen humans before they are proposed. And so I'm a bit critical in that respect, because I like to see that a product has a scientific dossier, and then you can look in the dossier and see whether what is supposed to do is actually documented. So it's not always the case. Now, how can a usual consumer, a lay person, find its way through the literature, scientific literature?
Exactly.
Is a bit critical. And then when there is even no human study to document it, then it's even worse. So it's a bit complicated, really.
So are there any sort of lines that you could make, just general principles where someone wants to try a probiotic for whatever reason?
Yeah. First, we mentioned it, but we're not ready yet to have the analysis or the test of the microbiota to support any kind of decision. As of today, I think that we're not too far. We're probably 3 to 5 years from the time when, because we have the standards, because we'll have big numbers, it will be available. But yeah, knowing that, basically, it can be judged on the basis of symptoms. And anyone who has gut symptoms could probably decide that he, she wants to test probiotics. And it's normal. I think it's a good way of thinking things. And then my suggestion is not think of one probiotic to do the job, basically. It's very possible that you have at some point in your life experience or at some point recently some gut permeability. That will drive a lot of potential other complications with some inflammation, with some oxidative stress that will alter the microbiota, and it can turn in circle. And if you want to break the circle, it's very complicated. So my view is that you need to consider that one probiotic alone probably will not be able to do the job. And whenever I get to recommend for family, for friends, for example, then I try to think of what could be used to reinforce the gut barrier and what could be used in combination to limit inflammation and what could be used in combination to tackle oxidative stress